All right, Chhorii, the Hindi language horror social commentary film from 2021. I'm here to review it. This is my first time doing anything like this, so pardon my half-baked hot takes, but I do think the film is worth talking about. It's worth talking about Bollywood in general and sometimes the problems with the films and what the industry needs to do to improve. So I'm just going to jump into an analysis. This is based on one watch. So like I said, bear with me. So it starts off with Lakshi and her husband. Lakshi is working. She's our main character. She's married to Hemant, and he presents himself right from the start as like kind of like a rich guy. They're city people. She's working for an NGO and with children. And then all of a sudden, like, he has a business deal that went bad, and these people come to his house, break in, and like beat him up, telling him he needs money, like to bring them money. So then they decide, him and his wife, Lakshi, they decide to like go with their driver to the driver's like brother's village, and then like from the start, it's really well set up where you just know it's a horror movie. There are all these like things where it seems like there's going to be a jump scare with the music and everything, and then nothing happens. So I think the start of the movie is really well done. The cinematography in this movie is really good. I like that they're building all this tension throughout the first half of the movie. So they go to this plantation of sugarcane. So it's, for people who don't know, sugarcane, it's like huge cornfield pretty much. Like, but instead of corn being like a little above your head, it's like twice as tall as a human. The field, super densely packed reeds. So they go out into this field after their driver drops them off, and they have to kind of just like follow a path. So from the start, you know, like, okay, something suspicious is gonna happen. They don't have cell service. They're these city people going to live in this small village in India. And they meet this couple there, and they're staying in this like isolated little house. Typical horror stuff happens where they're stuck, things seem suspicious, they split up when it's dark out and they're trying to find the house. So they get there, their driver drops them off, they walk into the reeds, and quickly it becomes clear that what the driver had told them was going to be there, it's not exactly like that, so we're suspicious. At one point, the husband leaves. So Sakshi, and by the way, her name means witness, so that's kind of interesting, because she's going to be paying witness, like bearing witness to an ongoing issue in the world that is femicide. But not to get ahead of myself, she's then left alone as her husband Hemant like goes into the woods. All right, so with the couple who live on this isolated, it's supposed to be a 5-building village, but we literally only see the one house. So it has the whole feeling of a bottle episode, which in TV, a bottle episode is where initially it was created as like a way to save money when you're making a TV show, to have, for some reason, the whole episode needs to be filmed in one little space. So this is a perfect like cost-saving device if you have to film an episode of a TV show and you don't have much time or money. So you just keep everyone in like a room, and you come up with some reason why they need to be in a room. So this is kind of what's happening in this whole, from the start. And from the start you can kind of tell, okay, this is going to be a movie about women being stuck in the house, because they're literally stuck just in a house, and all around the house is a maze of sugarcane fields, and they don't know how to get out. So the husband, though, the first morning is invited to go out into the sugarcane fields, when his wife is left with the other wife, and they're expected to do typical house chores type thing. The night before, the first like hint about what this movie is about is the men are given food first, and the wife from the city, Sakshi, is like, what? They still do that here? Women are still expected to eat second. And then her husband's like, what? That's not so bad. And she's like, it is bad. And then they're like, okay, whatever. And then like a minute later, he like is like, okay, come here, baby. And they're gonna get, they're going to bed. And she's like, should we really do this here? And he's like, oh, that doesn't matter. So clearly stating like men don't actually care about the tradition and culture of the village. They're just going to do whatever it takes, or whatever they would really want to do, regardless of like the culture. So they can use that culture excuse as just a way to get away with mistreating women, essentially. And in the morning, like the next few days, like Lakshi gets to know this lady better, and she kind of gives in to let her like paint her skin and give her a bindi and take care of her. And she says like, oh, this is like the first time I felt like I was mothered. And they kind of seem like, okay, things might be going better, but pretty clear like early on that there's going to be a conflict between the hosting like man and woman, and then the Hemat and Lakshi who are coming from the city. So then Lakshi starts seeing like the ghosts of children, but she's like, I want to play with them. I really like kids. I'm from an NGO. Like, I love children. They just want to play with me. They're like playing pranks on her, and it's supposed to seem like scary, but she's not scared. She just thinks that they're having fun with it. And then the lady of the household, maybe I should use her name, Bano Devi is her name, Kajla's wife. She becomes very controlling. We start seeing how male privilege, so her husband is allowed to leave, and she is forced to stay with this lady for a few days. But there's hints given that it might be more than a few days. And so right from the start, it's clear this is going to be a movie about how women are forced to stay in the home, and that's like their existence. And we start seeing like what can go wrong when someone is forced to stay in just like a small area, like how limited their life can become. As Devi, the older lady, she starts telling stories about like her son and how he has not been able to have any sons, and blaming the wives that his son has had for this. She tells a story about a little bird, a crow that keeps having its egg eaten by a snake. And then finally another bird, a sparrow, moves in, and the crow is able to take the egg out of the sparrow's nest and put it in its own nest, and then put its egg in the sparrow's nest, and this way it tricks the snake and is finally able to have its first child and live happily ever after. And you can tell that Sakshi is putting together the dots on this, and you get the feeling for just how much this lady, Devi, wants to control her life, even though she's being controlled by a patriarchal society to just have like this small responsibility that is her house, and like wanting her husband or her son to get married. This is obviously something for many Indian children. They can feel the pressure from moms who feel like it's their duty to get them married, and they end up becoming extremely controlling in this way. So my priors going into this are, I've watched some Bollywood movies. I, in general, am not a fan of a lot of the patriarchy that gets repeated in the films, almost to the point where it feels like the films are causing it in society and not just representing society. So I think marriage as just like the central theme of so many movies, even movies that are not about marriage just end up like marriage smuggling, kind of like Jesus smuggling. They're just like putting it in your face where it's like, this needs to be the way that things go. So marriage is just like the most important thing. That's the message that's just being drilled into people with every single Bollywood movie almost that I've ever seen. Like, they can't resist just bringing up marriage and making this whole extra other story just about marriage in the end. And like, that's what's going to make you happy in life. That's so important. I'm very tired of that in Bollywood movies. So if you're watching this and you're a writer in Bollywood, please like just make like a crime movie or like some movie about like literally anything like besides marriage. Just like, you don't need to talk about marriage. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there are millions of Indians who are not married. They don't need to hear it more from every single source of media how important marriage is. So that's what I'm going into this film thinking. Okay, it's a horror movie, so it's probably going to be like pretty low quality, and it's a Bollywood movie, so it's going to have some cringe elements for sure. Probably going to be about marriage. Okay, then I start watching, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Like, I think the start builds suspense well. You're showing like some social commentary about like women and how like women are the force oftentimes that are controlling other women. Right now I'm in Taiwan, for example, and this is also a thing that happens here where the woman is expected, when a woman is married, she's expected to go to her husband's family and then take care of them. And like during Chinese New Year, expected to just like do all the cooking when all the family's together. So a lot of stress and a lot of work is put on women, whereas the men get to kick back, relax, hang out together, and the women are used for their labor. So this is patriarchy, essentially, common between many cultures. And we're seeing this in this film, and it's the women that are oftentimes the ones who are actually forcing this on to younger women. I've heard people express this to me in Taiwan. I know it's a theme in India as well, where women have these extra duties and are expected to go to their husband's family and take care of them. That's totally unfair. And as somebody from the US, like, I think that's pretty unjust. So we see that early on in the movie. It's the woman, Devi, who's getting Sakshi to pretty much trying to force her to submit to her authority and submit to her role as a woman. So then, as the story progresses, there's more explanation about what happens. So spoiler alerts for the whole movie, essentially. There's this whole backstory of Devi's son not being able to have a child after. So the backstory is that Devi's son was married to a woman, Suaini, and she has a great relationship with these three boys who are Devi's sons, and Devi feels like she is taking control of them and she's a witch. And then she becomes pregnant, and Devi guesses that it's a female, or she's going to have a daughter, and they want her to kill her in femicide, which is actually still widely practiced. Also in India and throughout much of the world. So, clear example of femicide, which is, unfortunately has been practiced and continues to be practiced in some villages. So then the woman, Suaini, she tries to run away, her husband chases her, he falls on her knife and dies, and then she's blamed for murdering him. And so they set her on fire. So classic honor killing. horrible. She gives birth to the child in her burnt state, and then they proceed to drop the child in a well as she watches, running out of the house with totally charred skin. And then she jumps into the well after her. And then the three boys also jump into the well and become ghosts as they all drown. So Devi is, of course, super distraught. She lost her three boys and three of her four, and then tries to get three more wives for her son, who, plot twist, it's Hermat. So that's not really a big plot twist. If you didn't see that coming, then I don't know what to tell you. That was pretty obvious, I thought. So he tries to get married. She ends up just killing two of the wives, and then the third one she doesn't kill because she just decides that she's going to be silent. So there's this other lady that's just hanging around the property the whole time, and we're like, okay, something weird is happening. Obviously, we're getting all those hints. This is a horror movie, of course. Excuse me. Pretty good movie, I thought, but then in the end, we can already tell it's about femicide and women not supporting women, and that causing patriarchy to be even worse. And then they just paint it out. Like, they paint all this in dialogue. Like, this is the point of the movie. Clearly stated, direct main character saying it's not right what you're doing. Just because it's your culture doesn't make it right. It's kind of preachy because it's she's coming from the city. She works at an NGO, and we're supposed to think oh, she's so smart. But overall, I think it's a message that people need to hear, and also probably that people need to be told so blatantly. So then she gives this dialogue where it's just here's the point of the movie. The movie is not a horror movie, really. The real horror is femicide, the real thing. In the time that you watch this movie, 13 women were killed. This text pops up on the screen, and it's UN statistics about femicide. They're just in case you didn't get this through your mind, this is what the movie's about. The ghosts are the trauma of so many generations of this culture of women being second-class citizens, abused by their families, having no reproductive rights, women being not valued by society or by their families, and as seen as a drain, and this all being maintained by these controlling women who, that's the little that is in their control. So they just end up becoming the sword, essentially, of the patriarchal society. It's weird that they had to spell it out so clearly. If this was a Western movie, I'd be why did you have to do that? I do kind of appreciate it because I think so many people just watch media and they don't think what is this really about? Could this maybe not just be about a ghost story? Is this maybe social commentary? Is this based on something in the real world? Of course, almost always. People don't just write stories to just be fantasy. There's always connection to the real world. We see this in almost any fiction. Star Wars, the bad guys look like Nazis, or they're based on Yoda looks like a samurai. They're dressed in these robes, and so we just have these connotations built up of what does that mean to be a master, and especially a master with who can wield a sword super well, a lightsaber. So there's so many connections with any fiction that you're telling, where you're going to use this whole repertoire of images and tropes and history, images, essentially, to tell your story. Then, oddly, the story continues after the message has been stated. My one criticism is that Sakshi kind of is this city seen as like looking down on these village people. And there isn't like as much empathy, I think, as could have been showed, that like, I know like how hard this is for you guys, like, but like you just simply don't understand what happened. Like, she didn't kill your son, all these like women that you've murdered, they were also not to blame. And then she's walking away in the last scene after having just like explained like the whole story, the whole meaning of the movie. So Sakshi just is walking like slow motion away, and like her husband comes out and he's gonna like kill her. And then the other lady who had like been completely silent, Rani, kills him with an axe. And then she catches up to Sakshi, whose name means witness, and Devi is goddess. So Sakshi is like the witness to the village historical and present repression of women and lack of opportunities that women are given in these types of cultures. And it's a little weird that she's just the witness. She just comes from the city and then like leaves, essentially. And we're supposed to think like, oh, she's like great, she works at an NGO. That's repeated like 10 times. But like I said, like I like this movie. Like I think it's great that they actually just like said exactly what it's about. Like, this is not like a horror movie. This is like the real horror is the reality. And I think that's like usually like a pretty fine twist to have, because maybe people are not going to understand. If they just watch this movie, they're going to be like, oh, whoa, like it wasn't that good because like the ghost ending wasn't like such a big reveal or something. But just spelling it out super clearly to be like, look at, we were tricking you guys the whole time. This movie is fiction. Like, we're acknowledging that it's fiction. It's actually about reality, which is actually a lot scarier than the fiction. Like, ghosts don't exist, but they exist in our minds, and that's like the more interesting aspect of a ghost. Like, what is a ghost representing? Like, it's from the past. It's something that's haunting us. So in this case, it's the history of mistreatment of women that's haunting India and haunting so many women as they continue to perpetuate these systems that hold back women. And they just do it out of allegiance to, it was what's done to me, and so I'm just going to do this to the next generation. And unfortunately, this is a story that's happening in so many societies, in Taiwan, where I'm at now, in my own country, in the United States. Like, women are given these second-class roles, and that's why I think it is important that we have a female heroine in this case. And yeah, it's kind of like privileged feminism coming from the city, looking down on the culture of these village people, and there were 3 other women who were from the village, and they couldn't make a big stand. That's a little weird to me. But like the overall message about the social change that needs to happen, I think it's good, and it's what Indian society needs to hear. And they need to hear it without mincing words. Like, this is what the story's about. Like, you don't just go watch another movie right away. Like, think about it for a second. Hopefully some people do. Like, one of my biggest criticisms right now of Bollywood movies, like I watched this movie, Bawal, and it's about the Holocaust, and of course it's about marriage too, and it's just like comparing this couple's love to the Holocaust, and like they literally say that. They say, our love is like the Holocaust, like we had to go through so much. And the main character is this man who's just like a piece of crap the whole time. And then he's seen it like presented as like the hero from the start, and then he doesn't really change and he still gets to be the hero. And that's just like the worst kind of it's saying, it thinks it's doing like this good social thing and teaching about history of the Holocaust that so many people don't know about in India. But really, it's like perpetuating falsehoods about the Holocaust and really doing a horrible job with its stated goal, and maybe even making the whole thing worse. So it's unfortunate that there are movies now that claim to be doing good when actually they're doing the opposite. And Bawal is literally just like the most unwatchable movie. It's beyond cringeworthy because it's actually offensive. It's just like giving this like piece of crap dude like the center role of a movie and then saying like, oh, he can turn better by just like going to the places of the Holocaust and like experiencing some of that. His wife has like a seizure, and that's supposed to be like, oh, the first time a seizure was presented on screen, and it's like, okay, but like, what is the point of the movie? Like, the movie itself has like the worst writing, and this is all masked behind like amazing cinematography. Like, so this is what I think is so like disingenuous and like destructive about some Bollywood films is they have like the most quality film production. Like, the score is amazing, the camera quality, the lighting, all the second edits and everything that happen, second stage, all the behind the scenes like editing and stuff, first class, like really amazing. And then the writing is just like so like ChatGPT could just spit out a story about marriage and the Holocaust with seizures, and it would be way better than Bawal. Like, the movie is like just, yeah, so like a child just wrote this and didn't like get any advice from any adults who knew anything about the Holocaust or seizures or anything. Just like, I cannot criticize that movie enough. However, like Chhorii is like kind of cringe for how like blatant it is about the message, but it's doing what it's doing well. Like, it wants to just say a message about femicide, and it has the main character, lead woman, who, while she is like privileged, she has a message. Don't feel like particularly attached to Sakshi, but this movie made me think, and I'm sorry that I'm just angry about Bollywood movies so much, but at least it wasn't about marriage. Like, marriage was like a very small part of this movie. You gotta love that. Not about marriage. And overall, I'd recommend you watch it. Like I said, I only watched this movie once. Things are definitely going over my head. I watched it with English subtitles on. Like, I heard that the translations, or like the Hindi that was being spoken was really good. Having like the contrast between the city Hindi and we discovered to be parents speaking the village language. I also am no expert in Indian society. I have a lot of friends who are Indian. I think India's awesome, but that Bollywood has a lot of room for improvement. So I just wanted to make this video. It's the first one I've ever made like this, kind of hashing out some of my thoughts, because I think it's an interesting movie, and I think that people should analyze movies at a deeper level, even if it's just having a conversation like what I'm trying to do now, however imperfectly, and just try to like work out like, what is the movie saying? Why is it important to think about the media we're consuming, and what are the messages that are being given to us through the movie? So I hope this made you think a little bit. It's a super rough draft type video. I hope that we continue to have filmmaking as a medium for talking about ideas in society, because that is what it is, but some people just watch it for entertainment. So there's nothing wrong with watching a movie just for entertainment, but even like trashy movies usually have deeper themes behind them, and they might be really interesting, or they might be somewhat disagreeable. And just talking about them and criticizing is good. So I think it's healthy to criticize movies. It's a way of analyzing movies, criticizing, really. It's a way of appreciating, like, even if it's sometimes negative, it just shows that you're like engaged with it, and I think that's how we're going to keep getting good art. So not just blindly consuming some of the BS that's getting pumped out there and given to us with the Netflix algorithms. So anyway, chalo, chale, chalo.